Whether you're just starting out or you are running a nonprofit for many, many years, the question is going to come up whether or not you should be paid and whether or not you can be paid and if you want to be paid. So there are a lot of things that are going to have to be answered as an executive director and as a nonprofit founder. So I just want to use today to answer some of these questions, because a lot of times when I'm coaching clients, they ask me, how much should I get paid? How do I know how much I should get paid? And what happens if I do get paid? Is that the best thing for the organization? So these are some of the top questions that I get and I want to answer today for you guys in today's video. If you're new to my channel, my name is Ashlee Tate and I love talking about the social side of business. So we can talk mostly about like profit, purpose, productivity. Those are like my favorite things to talk about. And I use this channel to share all of that information along with my journey into social entrepreneurship as a nonprofit founder and also a business consultant. We marry the two on this channel. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. Thank you so much for being here. Let's jump right in. I want to just give you a little background. Recently, our organization, Launchpad for Kids, received a $25,000 unsolicited grant. We did not go out and ask for this grant. We did not apply for this grant. Someone just really apparently liked our organization and what we were doing and decided to give us a $25,000 grant. And we went to the mailbox and we found it. We were super excited. So we were just thrilled. And we received this grant sometime in April and we sat on it through May and really kind of just wanted to think about what we wanted to do with this money and how we were going to use it to grow and get some sustainability for our program. At the same time, we were also losing our program manager that we have had for probably the last 5 or 6 years of our 10 years as an organization. So she really has watched the organization grow, and she was growing and closing her business and really moving on to something better for her life situation. And we were left with who's going to run the program now. So I have been a social entrepreneur for 10 years and started this thing in 2013. First I was running it by myself, wasn't getting paid or anything, and then decided that I would hire someone to actually run that while I ran my online business. And this happened to be the person that was with us for those 5 or 6 years. So we were left with a hole that needed to be filled. And after speaking to my board, we decided that I would probably be the best person as a forward-facing representative for Launchpad for Kids. And obviously I have a real strong passion for Launchpad for Kids. When you are building something and starting it from scratch and then being able to have the opportunity to work inside of it, it's pretty amazing. Now, that brings me to the big thing about compensation. So when we were thinking about compensation, of how much I should get paid, and should I pay myself? Is that the right thing for the organization? Things like that. A few things came up and I thought I should redo this video for you guys and really talk about, can you pay yourself as a nonprofit founder? And if you can, should you? So basically what happened in our discussion is one of our board of directors, once we decided that I would be the best person for this situation to take over as program manager, we had to look at, number one, can I be paid? And the answer is yes, I could be paid. How much I should be paid? We decided on this after working through a number of different calculations of different ways that we could hire people, which I have a video on that as well for you guys. But after we came up with the amount that we thought anyone doing this job should be paid, we decided to use that as the amount that we would use for my payment. And that came out to about $1,000 and also $1,000 for our other employee that we have. So now that that's all said, we came upon that how much price for compensation, because after you've been working in your organization, I just want to say this, after you've been working in your organization, you realize how much work it takes to run this, even though it is a social impact business. You have to really think about yourself as an entrepreneur. You have to think about yourself as, if I grew this business on a for-profit side and you were getting paid, whether it was through an owner's draw or however you're getting paid, you have to think about what is the right amount of compensation for what you're doing, because your business still has to run. And so when it comes down to a nonprofit, the mission still has to be satisfied, right? Like, instead of when you are a for-profit business, you still need to think about stakeholders, which your stakeholders are your donors, your stakeholders are your board members, your stakeholders are the people that you serve, the people that you help, as opposed to stakeholders being maybe investors or someone who is in partnership with you for your for-profit business. So I always like to compare the two, because when you get down to brass tacks, honestly, both sides they run like they're both businesses. And so they have different stakeholders, but they both have stakeholders that you have to think about. And they both have bottom lines that they have to meet, which yours might be a mission as a nonprofit, and theirs might be a profit that they have to make as a for-profit. And why do they have to make that profit? Because that profit shows that the business is viable if they ever want to be bought out, or if anybody ever wants to invest, or anybody wants to even purchase your stuff, or for the owner to actually live. So we have to have, basically, I'm just trying to say that when you're running a nonprofit business, or you're running a social impact business, or you consider yourself a social entrepreneur, just because you have a social impact piece attached to your business does not mean that you should not be paid, or you should not be compensated for the amount of time and effort that you're adding in when you're working on your business. So with all that being said, I'll get off my soapbox now. With all that being said, when you think about how much you should be paid, you really want to look at what the duties are of the position that you're taking over, and what would be a reasonable amount of compensation. Now, you can do this by going online to Indeed, you can look on LinkedIn, you can search the internet. You want to find things that are comparable to the activities that you're going to be doing, and then you can find out if that's something that you should be paid. Now, for nonprofits, the difference between a for-profit and a nonprofit and paying yourself is the for-profit can just go do an owner's draw. They don't always have someone that needs to look over what they're being paid, or if it's reasonable or not reasonable, or how much they took out last month, or whatever, unless you are running as a corporation and you have a board. But if you're a sole proprietor, essentially it's just an owner's draw, and you decide whatever it is that you want to take out to pay yourself. Now, for a nonprofit, which is in our case, for a nonprofit, you have a board of directors. They have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that it is financially solvent. So that is your board of directors' job. And when it comes to your salary, they also do the same thing. So you have to bring that salary to them, saying like, hey, this is what I think I'd like to be paid. What do you guys think about this? Can we vote on this? And then once it's voted on, then that becomes your salary. And what we found is that you will then need like your president and your treasurer to be on your bank account so that they can sign the checks, because you don't want to sign your own checks. They will also need you, and this is the big thing, and I'll get to this in the is it right for your organization? I'll talk about that in just a second. That's how you come up with kind of like how much, okay? And how you decide if it's the right amount is you want to see if the IRS were to come in to check your organization for any position. This isn't just for your position, but if the IRS were to come in and look over your position and look over the amount of money that you're being paid, is it comparable to what other people in that position are doing? And that's what they're looking for. Because what they don't want is you to be paying yourself $5,000 a month and you're taking care of your home, but you're not able to accomplish your mission or keep accomplishing your mission. And in addition to that, that's not even comparable to what an administrative assistant might be making. If that's most of the tasks that you're doing is doing sort of administrative task, or you're doing something that's outside of that scope of work, right? So when you are setting up these positions for yourself and for others, you want to make sure you have a scope of work to really explain what this person does and why this amount of compensation is necessary, and even some research that you've done to show like this is what case managers generally make in that realm, or this is what program managers make in that realm, or this is what executive directors make in that realm. So how you coin yourself and the duties that you actually do are going to be approved by your board, and they're going to be approved obviously by you, so that you know that if the IRS were to come in and ask, hey, how did you come up with this? You have an exact way to show, this is exactly how I came up with this. This is exactly why I'm doing what I'm doing. And here's my scope of work. It's been approved by the board. Here's when we voted on the amount that I would be paid, and so on and so forth. So you have to be very, very, very careful. Whether you have a limited liability corporation or you have a nonprofit corporation, it really doesn't matter. If you're running a corporation, you generally have a board of directors who are going to help you in deciding these things, because now you are a full-fledged corporation, and the IRS and the state have a reason to actually be interested in what you're doing. So, and you have to keep that status. So that's why those things are so important. Now you know how much you might want to get paid, how you come up with that, and then how you decide if that's the right amount for you. Now on this last question, is it right for the organization? This is the big, big question for many nonprofit founders, because if you want to be paid as a nonprofit founder, one of the things that you're going to need to keep in mind is that if you get paid, and it will depend on how your bylaws run, but in most bylaws, it says that there is no board compensation. And if there's no board compensation, meaning you're not going to pay your board members, then if you are the president or the executive director of your organization, and now you want to be paid, and you also sit on your board, then you are not going to be able to either one, be on your board anymore, or two, you're not going to be able to get paid. So you have a decision to make. You can stay on your board and you can choose to not get paid, okay, not be compensated, or you can get off of your board and you can choose to be compensated. So what does it mean when it means to get off of your board? What that means is you no longer have voting rights as a board member. You will still have input, you will still be at all of the meetings, you can still say anything you'd like and help steer the organization, but you can get a paycheck now from your organization, but you won't be able to vote on your organization. So you have to decide for yourself, is it more important to vote, or is it more important to be paid and have input on the vote? And that's when it's really important to make sure that you have the board that you really trust them. It's important to make sure that you have such a strong level of trust that you're willing to step off of your board. Now, for me, I decided not to be paid because I would prefer to, one, be on my board. I want to have a voting right, to vote on specific things. And I just wasn't quite ready at this point in my organization to step off the board, and it wasn't a necessity for me to be paid. So a lot of you know that I have my online business, and that takes care of a lot for me, and that's kind of something more along the lines of my income. And for the nonprofit, there are some things that I just don't actually want to do either, because also you then are held to a certain expectation. And I thought I was going to completely let go of my for-profit business and completely go into my nonprofit business. And I just want to show you guys that there are other ways to make this happen. So I love being able to vote, number one, which is why I stayed on. And number two, I have my for-profit business that I run over here, and I do all of this other stuff. So you just have to really think about what is the most important piece to you. And there is no right or wrong answer. But if you have that the board members are not going to be compensated, then you cannot be a board member. And I really did not, I was like, what? So we had to kind of make that decision, and I had to think about it. And I was so thankful that my board member really went through with a fine-tooth comb on our bylaws to just check and make sure everything was going to be above board. So make sure you check your bylaws if you are wanting to be paid. And if it says anything about board compensation, which you have to have that in there at some point. So you either say, yes, the board can be compensated, and then everyone on your board is compensated. It's a compensated board, meaning everyone on your board is paid something for being on the board. Or you say, no, the board does not get compensated for being on this board, and you need to, if you want to be paid, then you need to remove yourself from the board. You basically become staff. And you can attend the meetings just like every other staff member. You can say your opinion, you can have a discussion, you can do a lot of things. And this works for a lot of executive directors. So you won't be doing anything that hasn't been done before, but it's just important to make sure that you think through that and know what the consequences are. Now, the consequences of staying on your board and getting paid, and your bylaws say this, is that you could trigger the IRS because it's showing that one board member is compensated, but not all of your members are compensated. And so if you don't want to make that change, or you don't want to trigger the IRS because you only have one or the other, then that's how that goes. So you have a little bit to think about from today's video, but now you know how much you can get paid, how to decide how much you should get paid, and also if it's right for your organization. So I hope that helped you. This was something that we happened to stumble upon, and I just wanted to make sure I pass that on to you guys. So thank you very much for watching today. I hope that you enjoyed this one, and I will see you next week. Don't forget to join the Social Life Tribe if you haven't already. And if you are thinking about starting a nonprofit and you haven't already, we now have an app for the Unleash Your Purpose, Start Your Nonprofit in 30 Days course. So you can check that out at ashleetate.com. Also, if you guys have any videos that you want to see from me, please let me know in the comments. I always love to hear whatever it is that you guys want me to talk about. It makes content creation so much easier. So, all right, guys, I will see you next week. Now get out there and unleash something amazing. Bye.